Hi, welcome to TuckerAllen Facebook Live, where today we will be discussing the difference between a healthcare directive and a DNR. My name is Kevin Mason. I'm a TuckerAllen attorney here in the Kansas City, Missouri metro area, and today I'll be serving as your moderator. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim and allow him to introduce himself now.
I'm Jim Gow, TuckerAllen attorney in the St. Louis metro area. So thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yes, thank you so much, Jim. So just one thing to remember today as we get going in this is that we're not forming a attorney-client relationship with this. If you have any questions that require or that you would like answered, just go ahead and call our office, set up an appointment time. We would be more than happy to meet with you. Our phone number is 866-335-3375. Again, any questions, just give us a call and we'll get that consultation set up. So with that being said, I'm kind of going to hop right into this with you, Jim. And would you mind just explaining to us what exactly a healthcare directive is?
Yeah, so the healthcare directive is also known and more, I guess, popularly known as a living will. So the living will or healthcare directive kind of spells out your end of life wishes. So, if you're in a persistent vegetative state, no brain activity, and the only thing keeping you alive is machines, a breathing machine, artificial nutrition, hydration. You spell out in advance what you want withheld and what you want to stay on, what kind of machines you want to still have keeping you alive.
Okay, got it. And so what is a DNR? I hear people say that term all the time.
Yeah, so it's confusing. So a lot of people think that the DNR and the living will or healthcare directive are the same thing, when really a DNR is more of an emergency document. So, if your heart stops and you stop breathing, suddenly the DNR can say, whether or not you want them to try to resuscitate you, or more than likely, do not resuscitate, which is what DNR actually is. So it's just more of an emergency rather than the healthcare directive being a gradual end of life kind of decision versus, emergency in the ICU, car crash type of thing.
Got it. Understood. So yeah, I'm sure that you have the same thing that I do, where we have clients all the time that come in and they might start talking to me about their DNR or say, hey, where do I sign the DNR, things like that. So I guess if you wouldn't mind, could you just, you've kind of told me the differences, I guess, now of the healthcare directive and the DNR. How do these kind of work together and how do they relate to each other? I know, so like the healthcare directive, right? That's a legal document. What is a DNR? Is that a legal document as well?
It is, but it does not have to be drafted by a lawyer. So the DNR is what people see when they go into the hospital and the doctor pulls out this pad of things to sign, and normally those are a DNR or a very, very basic low-level power of attorney, but more than likely it would be a DNR that you sign when you go into a hospital or a nursing home for procedures or, like I said, for emergency situations, so that the staff at the nursing home and the staff at the hospital knows what your wishes are if you suddenly stop breathing or your heart suddenly stops. Versus the healthcare directive or living will, which is, telling your healthcare agents, telling your powers of attorney, your family members what your wishes are should, a persistent vegetative terminal condition should come up at the end of your life.
Got it. So a good way to think about it is like DNR, this is for an emergency, like something horribly wrong has occurred like right now. And that's when this document would come into effect, whereas more that healthcare directive is more of the potentially gradual decline, or like you're saying, that like a coma type situation.
Right. And so you can kind of think of it this way, is let's say you get in a car crash and the doctors come onto the scene, they take you to the emergency room, you're in the ICU, they resuscitate you if you don't have a DNR in place, and then you're in a stable condition, you're on the hospital bed, you're on machines. That's when the living will would then kind of take over, because at that point they're saying, okay, yeah, they're alive technically, but the only reason is because of these machines. And so that's where your living will spells out your wishes of, I don't want to live like that. Quality of life is more important than just breathing.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That the visualization that really helped kind of put it all together for me. So, when I guess one question that I also hear sometimes from clients is they ask me like, "Hey, when should I sign a DNR?" At what point, since we're not doing it today, as we're going to create this estate plan, when is a good time to take care of that?
Yeah, so obviously the living will you get put in place. You have, you sign that and have it put in place and make your advance wishes when you do typical estate planning and healthcare power of attorney. More than likely, it's paired with that. The DNR though is, usually you see these. You're in like I said, the hospital or a nursing home, and most of the time it's we're going into surgery and it's heart surgery. We don't know if your heart stops on the table and you stop breathing. Do you want to be resuscitated? And they'll offer you the option of signing a DNR at that point. You can sign them at any time, but normally that's when you see them being used is pre-surgery, pre-hospital visit, stuff like that.
Okay, so let's just for the sake of what we're doing here, what would you say? Let's say they signed a DNR, but it's not in one of the situations you had kind of just outlined. It's not like at a hospital visit, or it's not at the nursing home. Let's just say, this is somebody who's, they're passionate. They know what they want. They're living at home. They have no issues at the moment. No reason to think that this, DNR, like you're saying, it's not like we're going in for heart surgery and there's a greater potential that a DNR would be needed. This is just somebody who wants to have one. They're living at home. Where should they store that DNR at?
Yeah, so a DNR signed not in a hospital or nursing home setting is a pre-hospital DNR, if you will. And normally those are the people, like you said, they're passionate. They know if I get in a car accident, I don't want the I don't want the paramedics to resuscitate me no matter what. So at that point, you would keep it on your person, in your glove box, on your nightstand, in your wallet, so that it can be found in that emergency situation. And the paramedics then know, we talked through the car accident scenario just a little bit ago. They know, don't resuscitate them, don't stabilize them to get to that living will setting. They've told us they've got this paperwork executed that says do not resuscitate under any circumstance.
Got it. So if somebody did, like this person that's passionate, they execute this pre-hospital DNR, like a living will, you want to provide that to your primary healthcare provider. Make sure that person has your healthcare directive. Would they also want to give that pre-hospital DNR to the primary care provider?
Absolutely, because they are used, they're very similar, but they are used for two different purposes. Like I said, the DNR is an emergency, sudden heart stop, versus the living will, which at that point, the healthcare directive, you're stabilized and they're just trying to decide whether or not the machines are the only things keeping you alive. So they're very similar documents, but for two different purposes.
Perfect. Well, Jim, I won't take up any more of your time today. So I really appreciate you clarifying kind of the differences in these two documents and how they work together. And with that being said, if you guys have any questions, just again, our phone number is 866-335-3375. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.